Hi, I'm Ian Mean, I'm editor of the Western Daily Press. I'm interviewing John Cridland. John is Director General of the CBI, and I'm interviewing him as part of the University of West of England Distinguished Executive Address Series, which is being sponsored by partners including the Bristol Post. John, we're here in University of West of England. You just toured the Robotics Centre. What an amazing place this is.
Fantastic place. It's like looking from the North Cape of Norway over the Arctic and thinking, wow, there's so much space out there. It blew my head away going around this robotics lab. So many phenomenal things going on, and that word transformational, sometimes overused, this is transformational stuff. What they're doing here with advanced intelligent robots could change our lives for the better.
And this is the world of work, isn't it? I know you're very strong on skills. What do we need to do to join up education and the world of work?
I think we need to get over this idea that the world of work is somehow about dirty hands. There's a sense that you're either academic or you're vocational. I've seen undergraduate students here in their first year at UWE running a company, actually running a company and facing the issues that an inventor who becomes an entrepreneur, who becomes an owner-manager, that then needs to hand over to a professional chief executive, has to face in how decisions are made. So I'm keen to break down the walls between academe and the world of work by saying we learn when we do, and we learn by example. Of course there's a role for theory. I'm a historian by background. I've read lots of books. Actually, seeing's believing, and doing is understanding, and doing is learning.
So how do we get companies more involved with a university like UWE?
So my experience with the corporate members of the CBI is they're gagging to get more involved. The universities are pushing at an open door. So what stops it happening more often than it currently happens? And whenever I see a Vice-Chancellor, I ask about business involvement, and there's usually an excellent list of very large companies, and there's a serious attempt to reach small companies. But the problem is the middle. Some of the most exciting businesses in the southwest of England are brands we've never heard of, but they're already beyond the small business stage. They're the medium-sized companies. I'm talking maybe of a business with a turnover of £20 million. Those companies need quite sophisticated support and sophisticated help, but we need to understand who they are and where they are and what their level of ambition is. And they need trusted friends. They don't necessarily want to be sold things. Universities are a trusted brand. Universities are a trusted friend. There's no better nurturing incubator for a growing business. But we tend to think that's only for small businesses. Actually, help me when I get to 20 million. It's tough at the beginning, but I tell you, it's tough in the middle.
Now, Southwest. Tell us about the Southwest. It's an exciting operation. You've seen robots here. We've got lots of work being done in the whole carbon field. What about this region as a powerhouse in terms of the economy?
I thought a bit about that question because it's nice sometimes to say how different a region is from the national norm. I think the more I look at the Southwest, it exemplifies the national norm. It speaks for the national norm. Britain's economy is beginning to fly, and this is the home of flying, the home of advanced manufacturing, the home of aerospace, the home of defence industries, the home of creative industries, the home of low carbon. There's so much going on here that reflects the future of Britain's economy. And I'm really delighted to say it's happening in the Southwest. And I sense there's been a turn almost in the last 6 months, a bit like turning on a penny. That confidence thing that the British economy was lacking, you can't bottle that. When you've refound your confidence mojo, suddenly you begin to fly. And I think in the last 6 months, an awful lot of entrepreneurs in the southwest of England have got the padlocks off their wallet because they sense things are picking up, and now's the time to invest. And by investing, the economy in the southwest will grow.
Yeah. Now we've got an election coming up in under a year's time. How important is it that the politicians understand what you just said? How are they going to maintain the mojo of industry in this region?
It's hugely important because for many politicians, I'm not a politician, I don't want to come across as being disparaging, I don't mean that at all, but for lots of politicians, it's about we need growth because if people feel better, they'll vote us in. We'll get elected. Actually, we need growth to be thinking about our children and our grandchildren's living standards and job security in 20 and 30 years' time. So the first thing I'd say to those politicians is if you really want to help the start-up businesses in this very fine university to be prospering in 20 years' time, have consistent policies. It doesn't mean you can't change things, but don't change things for change's sake. You know, before the last election we were talking about regional development agencies. Now we're talking about local economic partnerships. Make up your mind, stick with it. Do with government what I'm asking business to do and universities. Nurture, protect, build, because then you've got something for the long term. A lot of what entrepreneurs need shouldn't constantly be changing, because the converse is also true. Entrepreneurs get on with life. They know that politicians will seek to get elected, but uncertainty isn't good for business. And just at the moment, what politicians are saying about the future of the United Kingdom, whether we have continued membership of the European Union, whether we regulate markets or leave markets to the private sector, there are lots and lots of questions that promote uncertainty, and uncertainty chills investment. It's like putting that investment mojo in the fridge and cooling it down. We actually need to warm it up.
Now, what about the coalition? Are they doing a pretty good job in terms of doing just what you say?
Well, a lot of things have been done by the coalition in this Parliament that we need to stick with. I think we have had a broadly pro-enterprise culture from our politicians in the last 5 years, and I hope some of that would survive even a change of government. And I'd pick on three things. There's been a really strong focus on skills. I don't see why skills should be party political.
No.
You know, who's going to vote against apprenticeships? Yeah? Let's stick with it and build it. That, I think, has been good from the coalition government. I think we've had a really strong emphasis on tax reduction. Now, some people think more tax, more public spending. But what this government inherited was for every £4 that were being spent, they were only getting £3 in tax. You don't need to run a household budget to know that you can't go on doing that before you run into trouble with the debt collector. And therefore, I think whoever's in government needs to continue sensible public sector reform. I'm not talking about cut and slash. I don't want to switch off street lights. I don't want to close the public libraries. But heck, we've got to find a way of delivering public services that's affordable. And my third example would be, at the end of the day, if we want to earn our living in the world, if people want to work and have the quality of life in working in this great part of the country where you can get out to the coast and you can get onto the moors on a Friday evening when the evenings are long, having done a hard day at the office, we've got to sell our products and services around the world. Businesses in the southwest, like Mulberry, are selling handbags to the emerging middle-class women of the East Asia and Latin America. And we should never forget, and I think this government's got that point, that an export-led recovery. That's how Bristol grew as a world city, on exports. We sort of lost that for a while. We need that mojo back as well.
Now, what about skills? Young people you've seen here with skills. How are we going to maintain that impetus?
So, I think vocational studies should be called vocational A-levels. Because if you ask employers which bit of the education system they trust, they still trust A-levels. I'm not saying they're perfect, but they see A-levels as a gold standard, but it's back to going to Russell Group University. Great, but that's not for everybody. Vocational A-levels, actually getting a business to put you through an apprenticeship with the promise that if you come up to good quality, they'll sponsor you through university. Yeah, tuition fees challenge lots of working class families. Am I still going to have the chance to go to university? Have I any chance of going to university anywhere other than my hometown? What better way than being sponsored by your employer the companies here in the southwest, the big manufacturing companies, will sponsor you, John, through university. Learn while you earn. That's a good model.
Absolutely. And work experience is vital, isn't it, to these young people? Proper work experience.
It is. There's nothing worse. We hit 2.5 million unemployed. We had lots of people compulsorily idle, not by choice. There's nothing worse than sitting in a bedroom, playing with the Xbox or being on the internet hour after hour after hour. People get demoralised when they get bored. They get demoralised when they can't see light at the end of the tunnel. So I think work experience is fabulous. Internships are fabulous. Being some criticism that these are unpaid. They're great if they can be paid. If you get a chance to spend 6 weeks in a charity, maybe the charity can only do that if it pays your travel expenses and nothing more. But it's better than sitting in that bedroom because of what it leads to. It's a rung on a ladder. And actually what businesses here in the southwest do that I think is incredible, they take the young people who haven't been well served by the education system, those that haven't got the best qualifications at 16, they take the returners from career breaks, not always women, but often women, who've lost some skills, who've lost some confidence, and they give them a chance. Maybe they start on relatively low wages, on relatively low skilled jobs, but the best thing an employer can do is say, we're going to give you a chance to climb this ladder, and this ladder leads to better jobs, better living standards. It has to start somewhere. What better way to start than work experience?
One last question. The politicians are now going to be on our TV screens non-stop. What's your big message for them, for the Southwest?
My big message for them is the only people in Britain who create jobs are entrepreneurs. And I've seen some great entrepreneurs today, aged 18 and 19 in the University of West England. Back those entrepreneurs, liberate those entrepreneurs, help those entrepreneurs, because they're the people who will create jobs. They're the people who will pay taxes, and that's what keeps our universities, our schools, our hospitals, our defence forces funded.
Thank you.
Thank you.